In his post-presidency years, Jimmy Carter has quite the record when it comes to being anti-war, especially for a former US president. He condemned Israel's policies in occupied Palestinian territories, spoke out against US meddling in Syria, and even sat down with Oprah to tell national audiences that America is an oligarchy instead of a democracy. Unfortunately, Carter's opportunity to create the kind of foreign policy he wanted was squandered during his time in office, and many of the policies he has spoken out against in retirement are the kinds of policies his administration supported. For example, in June of 1979, President Carter greenlit pre-production of a 190,000-pound missile capable of carrying 10 nuclear warheads. After taking office in 1981, President Ronald Reagan supported and even expanded the program, dubbing it the Peacekeeper. In July of 1979, Carter authorized covert aid for opponents of the communist government in Afghanistan. Less than a year later, the Russians invaded, and the US and Saudi Arabia gave an estimated $40 billion in support to Mujahideen guerrilla fighters opposing them, an action which substantially impacted world events decades later. Carter ended up using the Russian invasion of Afghanistan as an excuse to withdraw from Senate ratification of the already signed SALT II nuclear arms treaty. The Carter administration also abandoned campaign pledges to cut defense spending by $7 billion, and instead initiated budgetary increases that, in his last year, amounted to the largest in history up to that point. In a 2017 biography, Edward Kiefer wrote that Carter, quote, became a reluctant convert to increased defense spending, and brought into production new weapons including stealth aircraft, precision bombs, and modern digital technology, which prepared the foundation for President Reagan and Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger's military buildup. When asked if the United States had a moral obligation to help rebuild Vietnam, Carter responded that, quote, the destruction was mutual. You know, we went to Vietnam without any desire to capture territory or to impose American will on other people. We went there to defend the freedom of the South Vietnamese. And I don't feel that we ought to apologize or to castigate ourselves or to assume the status of culpability. In 1979, a military faction in El Salvador consolidated its power following a coup, and the Carter administration supported the coup regime, believing that it offered the best opportunity to stabilize the country and prevent a communist takeover. In January of 1980, Carter declared in his State of the Union address that any attempt by any outside force to gain control of the Persian Gulf region would be regarded as an assault on the vital interest of the United States of America, and such an assault would be repelled by any means necessary, including military force. This would come to be known as the Carter Doctrine. Jimmy Carter didn't authorize an invasion that killed hundreds of thousands like Bush did in Iraq, and he didn't launch missile attacks in at least 7 different countries like Obama did. Carter's body count might be smaller, but the graves still nonetheless exist. Carter should be remembered for a lot of things, but being a dove is just not one of them.